What is blockchain? In order to explain blockchain, let's first understand how things work today. Let's say Pam lives in Germany and wants to transfer 100 euros to Jim, who lives in the United States. Two things to point out. Number one, Pam, same as most of us, keeps her money in the bank, which means she's trusting her bank with her money. Number two, sending that money to Jim in the United States will be done by the bank, who will charge a fee and take about 4 days to process the transaction. So a few issues here. One, Pam needs to trust her bank with her money during the transaction. Two, neither of them has much insight into the transaction itself. Three, transaction will take time. And four, it'll probably cost more than it should. So how does blockchain solve that? Let's say Pam, Jim, Michael, and Phyllis want to move some money around. Each of them has $5 in their digital wallet to start with. Imagine an open ledger or notebook in between them, available for each of them to see. That ledger will contain all the information about the transactions that happen from the first one. Now, let's say Pam wants to send $5 to Jim. So they all know Pam started with $5 since the ledger is open. And they agree this transaction is valid. So it is successful. Now, usually ledgers or books contain letters. But this ledger contains blocks in which transactions are stored. So this transaction is submitted to the first block. Now, let's say Phyllis wants to send $5 to Michael. They all know she had $5 to start with. So again, they'll agree on this transaction and it is confirmed. This is submitted to the next block and linked to the previous one. Let's say Phyllis wants to send another $5 to Michael. It was recorded that her balance fell to zero when she sent those $5 to Michael. So everyone knows she doesn't have him anymore. And this transaction is not successful. It is not submitted to the block. So basically everyone knows every transaction since the first one. And every time another transaction is confirmed, ledger is updated. Once the information is stored in the ledger, it can never be reversed or changed. So we said ledger contains blocks. Each block contains a certain amount of approved transactions, and when the block is full, no block is generated. And once transactions in it are confirmed by everyone in the network, it is linked, chained to the previous one, and that is why it's called blockchain. This ledger containing all the transactions is actually not central. Actually, everyone in the network has a copy. So now we have a distributed system without the central point of failure. So blockchain is distributed and decentralized. Everyone can have a copy of the ledger and also contribute. There is no single point of failure. It is peer-to-peer. Money is sent directly from one person to another. It is trustless. Complete history is available for everyone. And as said, money is never in the hands of the third party, so there is no need for trust. And it is immutable. Every transaction stored on a blockchain is permanent. It can never be changed or tampered with. Transactions can be almost instant and can cost less. When I say everyone in a network, I mean computers. People don't process the transactions. It is all done by computers using the set of predetermined rules we just briefly touched on. Now, this was just a simple overview of blockchain. Things like who exactly processes the transaction and holds the copy of the ledger. Is it every computer? How do they agree who has the correct copy, since each computer can have one? And why can someone just cheat and double spend the money? This will be explained in the next video about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And the last thing to point out, here we only mentioned blockchain in terms of currency transactions, but actually it can store anything, any kind of files. For example, medical, car history, real estate, so it can be useful across the board, making sure that every transaction, once it's submitted to the blockchain, is immutable and can never be changed.